We are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Kilgore, and I would like to welcome you today to our June 10th, 2024 Planning and Economic Development Committee remote meeting. All council committee members are participating virtually. And to help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud, and we are streaming live on the Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city's website. We also have the option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you out there with us today, we'd like to say welcome. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 8187. At that time, your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. And at this point, speakers will need to press *3 and enter into the speaking queue if they would like to speak. At this time, I'd like to go through the roll call and introduce all the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. And council and staff, as I say your name, please say a quick hello. Councilwoman Maggie Ullman.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Manager Ben Woody.
Good afternoon.
Assistant City Attorney Janice Ashley.
Hello, everyone.
And also joining us today, we have Nathan Moneyham and Chris Dayton from the North Carolina Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. And also, Councilwoman Turner may be joining us a little later in the meeting. And at this time, we'd like to sort of start with the first thing on the agenda is basically to approve the minutes for May 13th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, guess I'll second. Okay, so I'll do a roll call. Councilwoman Ullman.
Aye.
And myself, aye. Motion passes. The second thing on our agenda today, we have an update for the I-26 connector presentation. Nathan Moneyham and Chris Dayton of the North Carolina Department of Transportation will give us an update on the optimization and refinement period. This is for information only, so there will no one be taking a vote today.
Thank you. Glad to be able to provide an update. As I go through here, if there are any questions, feel free to ask or at the end is fine too. Generally conversational, but we'll go through. But I'm Nathan Moneyham. I'm the Division Construction Engineer for Division 13 here in Asheville, working mainly on the I-25-13 connector project, and really been focusing on that over the past year or so through this procurement process. I wanted to start with an update, if you can go to the next slide, just with a general project overview. Before we dive into O&R and what it is, I always find it's helpful to remind everybody all the different sections of this project and everything that it covers. Go to the next slide. This is the large map of everything that makes up I-25-13. And there's a lot of different sections, and they're all in various stages. So before we dive into optimization and refinement, just wanted to give a brief overview of where we are with each piece. Go to the next slide. The first section here is I-25-13 AA and AB, which you can may hear referred to as the south section. It's really the I-40 section of the connector. As you can see on the map, it extends down from Smoky Park Highway interchange down 26. It's a delivery method of bid build, which means that the department has fully designed those plans. We're currently in right-of-way acquisition, and we're anticipated to let that to a construction contract next month, with a completion date expected in May of 2029. And it'll be the first really thing that you see as far as actual construction in the field, starting later this fall. And the work associated with that project is really to replace all the existing concrete there on I-40, where we've had those maintenance issues through the years as the concrete is deteriorated. The other big improvements that this project would make, it also will put a new westbound off-ramp over the railroad for Smoky Park Highway and Patton Avenue. You see that in the pink there on the top part of the map, as well as widening the existing I-40 eastbound to I-26 eastbound ramp to 2 lanes. So we see a lot of benefits with this project, the mobility in that area, both with the interchange with 26 and with Smoky Park Highway. Just the funding amounts here of where we're currently funded. We're funded at right-of-way, which for the most part has already been acquired, a little over $2 million, and the construction contract for this piece specifically is just shy of $100 million. And that goes to, again, construction here later this fall with a contract let in July. You can go to the next slide. The next piece of the project is I-2513AC, commonly referred to as the west section. It's another bid build section, meaning the department's fully designed and in process of requiring right-of-way in this area now, and moving utilities. And it's scheduled to let November of 2025 next year, with a completion date anticipated out in 2031. And the bulk of this project is really widening I-26 and I-240 from the I-40 interchange up to Haywood Road, widening that to 6 lanes. Another big note of this project is it includes all the work associated with the Brevard Road and Amboy Road interchanges, and that design is a split interchange with frontage road connecting those two routes. It's funded currently a little shy of $44 million in right-of-way, the majority of which has already been acquired or in process of being acquired, and $217 million for construction. Go to the next slide. So the last kind of piece that's unfunded before we talk about the design build is I-2513C, and that's what you see in the light purple there. And that really consists of the I-40 and I-26 interchange. Again, it's currently unfunded. We're funded really for only preliminary engineering only. It was reprioritized in P7 without going into too much detail about the STIP process here, but it competes against other statewide projects for funding. That was actually completed. We got the results of that last week, and it was unsuccessful. So it'll be pushed into the next round of that for us, P8. So we're still looking forward and seeking after funding for this last piece of the project. Estimated construction costs and right-of-way costs at this time is about $284 million. That's that last remaining piece. Go to the next slide. The biggest piece of the project, and really what we're here to talk about today, is I-2513BD, what we would refer to as the north section. And that's everything you see in green there on the project, the larger project map. It is a design build. We have awarded it, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just last month. We anticipate a completion date in 2031. And the major items of work are to widen I-26 and I-240 from 4 to 6 lanes, from Haywood up to Patton. Improvements both to Haywood Road and Broadway Road interchanges. Improvements to Riverside Drive, that's that D section of I-2513D. And then new location interstate across the French Broad River. That's those new bridges that really have become synonymous for what the connector is here. So the funding for those projects currently, we've got $175 million in right-of-way, roughly $30 million in utility relocation, and we're funded for $825 million in actual construction costs. That's just a brief overview of the whole project, ending kind of with this section that we're focusing on, the north section. which leads us into kind of really wanting to update you on where we're at with that larger project with the north section, I-2513 BD. Go to the next slide, and the next slide, probably. Click one more. So to give you kind of update of where we are with this project, it's again a design build. So with that, we're contracting out not only the construction, but the design process, the right-of-way acquisition, and the utility relocation. And when we do that, we do it in a procurement process that allows for competition between what we call shortlisted teams. In this case, we started that process for this project in January of 2023, and we shortlisted 3 teams to compete, and they've been doing that really for over a year. One of the things associated with that, it's a very highly confidential process. Even internally at DOT, it's very confidential. The reason being is because we have teams that are competing against each other based off their intellectual property. So we're very mindful of confidentiality and those things. But all that's been going on is those 3 teams competed to submit technical proposals as well as price proposals at the end of procurement. They look for ways to innovate based off the preliminary design that was publicly made available at the 2018 public hearings, and ways to improve the project throughout that process. All of that leads up to where we were in February of this year at our initial bid opening. They submitted their technical proposals, their initial designs, as well as their price proposals. And unfortunately, all the bids exceeded the allowable ranges of our engineer's estimate. They all came in over 10% of our initial estimate. And because of that, no award was made in February. And I know that was covered in the news and locally, and we shared some information about that at the time. But it really brought us to what is the next phase of the project. You can go to the next slide. And the next phase, because of that, is what we would call the best and final offer process. And that's a standard process for us. It's basically in the same way that we would a bid build, we would relet for a design build project where these 3 teams have worked on this for a year. We can't just start over. We don't want to lose that work for that year or that time. So it allows us as a department to go back to those teams and work with them to really get, again, their best and final. What's the best price that they can give us for the project? And typically what we do in a best and final process on the design build is we change something with the project in order to reduce cost. Whether that be scope or risk or any other avenues that we might have to change our requirements to reduce that cost. But what we determined very early on after February was that this project specifically, because of all the involvement in the community, because of the size and the scope of it, we didn't have an easy way to make those changes in a very quick manner as we typically would. And we knew we had a significant cost reduction that would be necessary. So because of that, in our BAFO process, that best and final, we developed specifically for this project a new process that we're calling optimization and refinement. So rather than changing the scope and putting it back out to bid in a very quick manner under all that confidentiality, what we did instead was include a requirement in our contract that the design build teams would have to submit to us, along with their best and final offer, a proposal for ways to optimize and refine the project, and ultimately with the goal being to reduce cost post-award. You can go to the next slide. And we vetted that process. It comes out of an idea initially from Arkansas DOT. We worked with Federal Highways Major Projects to kind of vet it in that really short time frame. But here's some of the principles that kind of helped us make that decision to go this route. It's a way that we can effectively address some risk issues inside a defined period with our contractor, high-risk issues like utility relocations and site conditions. The second bullet there, we can do that collaboratively with them, as well as talk about scope reductions. We can do it collaboratively with them and with city staff and with local stakeholders, because once we award, we kind of get out of that umbrella of confidentiality, and we can talk a little more openly. It also, again, helps us to mitigate risk specifically between the winning team and DOT, to really dive into what those issues are that we may not be aware of, but a design build team can point us in the right direction. Last piece of that is just that it provides us an opportunity to take the best of all three of our competing teams and incorporate them together without impacting schedule and design. Without this O&R process, our typical design build process is a very fast pace. As soon as we award, the winning team is hitting the ground running, and any kind of incorporation of another idea is something that would typically incur some additional cost impacts and schedule impacts. But approaching it from this standpoint in O&R, we're able to pause, take the time to get the best ideas out of all three of our teams' work over the past year, and work towards the best design that we can get. You go to the next slide. So what all that led to is ultimately a second bid opening in May, and this is the one that was publicly addressed as our BAFO bid opening, that best and final offer. And you see the bids there. We opened them on May 7th. The low bid was Archer Wright joint venture at 1.14 billion. I'm sorry. And with that award, they were successful and were awarded the project at that amount. In that time, we've worked to execute the contract. That was actually completed as of last Friday. We've still got a couple more things to do internally to put that, get all the signatures we need and get that fully in place. But we do have a contractor and a joint venture team under contract and ready to embark on this new process of O&R this month. You go to the next slide. So what does that look like? What does O&R really look like? Well, we've defined it as a 6-month period for this project. And again, it's going to be a process that allows us and Archer Wright to work collaboratively to find scope reductions, construction inefficiencies, other innovations, and ultimately do all that while still retaining the necessary functions of the project and bringing costs more in line with planned estimates and our available funding. The key functions of the project that we're committed to maintaining are the commitments that have been made in the FEIS, the Federal Environmental Impact Statement, and in the ROD, the Record of Decision. So all those green sheet commitments that really it took the past 20 years to get to make sure we maintain those. The other thing that we're committed to is all the estate treatments that have been agreed to with the city of Asheville, the majority of which the city is paying for. So from a budgetary standpoint, those are not things that we look to for savings. Another big piece of the project that we're maintaining and retaining through this process is the continued separation of I-26 and Patton Avenue traffic, which is a big part of the selected alternative, and maintaining that critical piece of the project, as well as all the pedestrian and cyclist connections. And I say connections, meaning some of them may be modified as other parts of the design are changed, but we're committed to maintaining all the connections that have been discussed and worked through over the many years of the development of this project as we continue through this O&R. Go to the next slide. So what is that? Again, what are we doing now? So DOT and the department will go through this 6-month process. We're looking to get started with the initial stages of it as early as next week. There's a compensation associated with that to our design build team. We're paying them a monthly stipend as they work with us to mitigate risk and optimize the project. A part of that will be coordinating with local stakeholders throughout the entire O&R process. We'll be sharing all these cost saving ideas that come out to comment on from city staff, from the MPO. We're looking for input on these as we develop them. So we'll be doing that through a series of stakeholder meetings throughout this 6 months as we continue to keep everybody updated as we go through that process. With the ultimate goal that at the end of this period, after we pulled all these ideas together and we spent the time from an engineering standpoint vetting them, coming up with estimates associated with their potential cost savings, that we would negotiate a new contract amount with Archer Wright joint venture. That new contract amount and a final design would be agreed upon and executed, and we could then begin construction at the end of that 6-month period, which is our ultimate goal. In the event that enough cost reductions are not identified, there is a caveat that this contract could be terminated, and a new procurement process would be determined at that time. We expect or hope to not get to that point. We feel pretty confident about the ideas that we've initially kind of began pursuing and are looking as we go through this process to generate some more, both internally at DOT from our team and even from stakeholders, and bringing that full kind of coordination effort together to ultimately make this project successful. There's not a specific goal in mind as far as the cost reduction. We just want to make sure that we are, from the standpoint of the statewide funding situation, that we are optimizing and making sure that we're getting as close as we can to what was initially programmed for this project. I think that's my last slide. Are there any specific questions I can answer or discussion from there, more detail that y'all may want on specific items?
Now, just ask one question. Like you were saying at the end, if you were not able to come to some agreement, everything could be terminated, and then it sort of starts over again with the rebid process with all three of the people that were interested, companies that were interested, or does it just start over with that particular vendor?
It would, at that point, I'm hesitant to say start over, but we would look to a new procurement method. So what that means for us is we would start a new bid process. It probably wouldn't be design build, just to be kind of what I think right now. Again, that's a hypothetical down the line question, because one of the advantages to this process is we're paying for it. So anything that comes out of this over the next 6 months, from an intellectual property standpoint, is owned by DOT. We can incorporate it into our design and our preliminary design. And then whether it be a bid build at that point or a design build or one of the newer procurement methods that the legislation is looking at, whether progressive or CMGC, we would evaluate all those options to figure out what is the most successful path for the project at that point. Again, that's an avenue and a road we expect not to go down. We're confident in our ability to be successful with this process that we're embarking on. But that is a caveat there that we do have that exit ramp. But even if we do have to take it, all of the work and the coordination that'll go on the next 6 months will still have value, even in the next kind of round that we would do.
Thank you.
Again, Nathan, thanks for being here. Part of what I really appreciate, one, is just even as someone on council, the project that you're preparing is very complex, and it's going to have a lot of different touch points over a long period of time for so many of our citizens. And so I think just being able to help us really keep up with it is really meaningful. So thanks for being here. And to hear, I mean, some questions I'd asked you not too long ago was like, this budget came in so high. Are we going to pull back on any of the things that a lot of people in Asheville worked really hard with y'all to kind of come to agreement on? And so I think that just seeing this, in paper is really nice for us to be able, as electeds, when we're out there communicating, saying, no, some of the main things that we worked really hard on, making sure there's no interstate traffic on the Bowen Bridge, making sure we have safe multimodal connections, making sure that the aesthetics are leveled up with city money, that all of those aren't going to be adjusted in any of these processes. So just really grateful, because I think that to make a big project like this work, we all have to be kind of speaking from the same sheet of music. And then all excited to just be able to maybe send some kudos your way. It sounds like a really tough predicament y'all were in when those bids came in so high. So this ONR process that you've come up with, which I really think could become best practice for organizations of your size working on this type of thing, I think it really helps us maintain momentum while ensuring the integrity of the process. So just really a gratitude for the learnings and the continued assurance that the city and the DOT are on the same team moving forward, and the things that we've already worked so hard to get on the same page about, they aren't going anywhere, except they'll go onto the ground one day when they're installed. So we're still moving towards that. So I'm just really appreciative.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and we are committed, and personally committed to getting this thing delivered. It's been a very significant, I'll say, past 3 months to get to this point. And we really do feel like the work that's been done from that first bid night in February to now is our best path forward. And we're feeling confident about being successful with that.
Have any other questions or comments? If not, thank you very much for the update. We greatly appreciate you all coming.
No trouble.
Okay, and Chris, did you have anything to add?
No, just that hope y'all thank you for having us, and thank you for letting Nathan talk to you. He's been working very hard on this, trying to make sure that this keeps going for everyone, and it's been a pretty large undertaking trying to get all this worked out for the money we have. He's been doing a great job making sure this stays carried forward. But we appreciate you for having us to let him talk to you about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much, Nathan and Chris. And at this time, we have, Ms. Katie, do we have anyone in the queue for public comment today?
One moment, let me double check. No, we do not.
Okay, I have no one in the queue. So with that being said, this sort of brings us to the end of our session today, but we would like to give you an update on future agenda items that are coming up in July. We'll have a review on proposed micro-mobility related ordinance updates. We also will be updating our UDO, the implementation of the comp plan, and also a presentation of the Reed Creek Greenway feasibility study. Also coming up in August, we'll do an update on construction and permitting volumes and value. So with that being said, if no one else has any comments or anything today, I guess it will be adjourned. Thank you all, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.